My name is Timmy Chang. I'm currently a high school senior who will be graduating after 2 days, on exactly June 1st, 2017, at exactly 2 in the afternoon. I know which college I'm going. I know what major I want to have, but I'm not quite sure what would I become in the future, or perhaps I'll change a major because of my sudden change of interest. And this shows that our future is pretty unpredictable. We don't know what will happen perhaps in the next instant second, or perhaps for the next few decades. But what we can do to deal with this future, this unpredictableness, is to dream, to have a goal, pursue it, and build that future that you always wanted to have. I want you now to imagine, close your eyes if you want to, and think, what dream would you want to achieve? Would you wish to have a family, a successful career, or earn millions and billions of dollars? Now, no matter what you had just dreamt of, isn't it just amazing how much potential we humans have of building that extraordinary future? But wait, there's definitely one question you never consider when you're thinking about your future, which is, where will this future take place? Because of the current global issues and challenges, our future might need to be held back for sure. You might need to worry about finding a job due to unemployment and poverty, or even worrying going outdoors because of pollution, or even moving away from your homeland because of natural disasters or terrorism. And you might think that, nah, that end of the world scene will not happen in my generation, or that some green activists will definitely come out and deal with these challenges one after another. And all you need to do every day is to wake up, rinse, eat breakfast, go outdoor, and deal with all these personal shit you got. Well, you're wrong, and right at the same time. You're wrong because that end of the world scene will happen when you're still alive. And you're right because some activists will definitely show up to deal with these issues. But you will actually be needing to be part of that solution activist team. However, I'm not here to terrify you. No. Nor I'm here to tell how great you are. But I'm here to tell how important it is for you to realize that you will be determining what kind of future you will have as well as your future generations. Our world today is pretty nice to most of us. We have internet, Facebook, internet, technology, internet, cell phones, and internet, which is pretty nice. But under that happiness is a truth that we all know. I bet that you know, and I bet that you know that I know. It's that these global challenges are not decreasing, but increasing at an extremely high rate. And you must think that this is a really huge, great big deal, because I'm telling you to be part of that activist team and deal with these global issues. However, I'm here to propose you an idea, an extremely simple concept and way for you to fight and eradicate them once and for all to build a future. This concept actually only takes 2 words. Same mindset. Imagine if the entire human population, 7.5 billion of us, can have the exact same mindset and urge, which is to fight global issues with action, to have that urge and become that activist team. We will actually might have just decreased the time to go against these global challenges perhaps by 50% or even 99%. And I don't blame you if you think this is extremely bizarre, because you might think, how is it possible to have every single citizen across 192 countries to have the exact same thought and mindset? Well, it is happening today actually, just within perhaps a smaller scale, within a nation or an ethnic group. And this concept I'm talking about here can be known as global consciousness or unity. This term was introduced to me by my senior thesis mentor, Dr. Brian Harmon, when I was doing a paper about how to resolve global issues efficiently. So in short, this concept, global consciousness and unity, is the evolution stage of nationalism and patriotism. You might not realize this, but the power of these 2 factors play a major role in our history all the way to today. Since the 1770s, nationalism began to form. People developed a personal identification to a country along with the influence of globalization and markets. And in short, this is when the entire citizen of that country has the exact same spirit and thought, which is to make their country great again. And this is more than just a generic thought, because it is what they want to do and it's the urge that they want. So they take actions from the love and passion from their homeland. And this doesn't need to be parallel to the government, because they're striving for the best, not for the better. It means that they have the possibility to even go revolt and against the government in order to become that best state of their country. One example is the Yellow Revolution, known as the People Power Revolution in the Philippines a while ago, which millions and billions of people have went on the Epifanio de los Santos Avenue to protest against President Marcos' harsh assassination and martial law. Eventually, this actually became one of the most successful non-violent revolutions throughout entire history, which kind of shows you the power of nationalism, how much people can actually have when they are united and have the same mindset. And I want you to imagine if we can take this to a global scale, to bring like unified power to a global level. From the love and identification of a country to a love and identification as a global citizen. And instead of thinking about forming a new governmental system or perhaps forming nationwide revolutions, we can start revolutions global at a global scale to create a new system to deal with these issues and eradicate them once and for all. And you might think this is still quite overwhelming, because how can we actually have the same thought when you might think it's already quite difficult for us to persuade our classmates, to persuade our colleagues to have the same idea as you? I believe that a 3-step progress plan is good enough for you to form that global unity and consciousness starting within yourself. And the first step of this entire progress is targeting our generation. Our generation will be facing the worst consequences of global issues and global challenges. As I say, our future will be held back. And the interesting fact about our generation is that we're anti-political, as according to studies of media and the economists from both US and the United Kingdom, more than half of the young voters are refused to vote because they believe that government go in for selfish reasons. They also believe that, most of them believe, that they're inefficient and wasteful. Therefore, they've formed that self-perpetuating hopelessness to the current political society today. Another fact is how our generation can start to break that social barriers that a previous government has created. One example is how the North and South Korean athletes were actually socializing and taking photos during the Rio Olympics. This was described by the media as the most iconic photo and spirit of the games, which kind of shows that even the media recognize that our generation is starting something new. We're starting to form that international community across different nations. And the second step towards this is to start debate, any type of debate activity. And you might think, why debate? Why is debate even related to forming a global consciousness or global unity? And the thing is that debate is a very essential step for you to start understanding about the world today. And I bet half of you here believe that debate is sort of the thing for nerds, or like it's a competition of fancy speaking. But you're right in a sense, because when I start to talk to people who are not involved in debate, they can point out a few advantages and increase your speaking skills, your language ability, as well as your confidence. But moreover, they also trace back to the ultimate point that they believe it's a competition that requires aggressiveness. That if you don't do fancy metaphors or you cannot speak powerful enough, you basically lose the entire thing. And this is sort of a misconception. Firstly, why can't debate be a thing for nerd? I'm personally proud to become a nerd to participate in debate. And actually, it is the very basis of fundamental thinking and learning for our generation when it comes to the future. Firstly, it's important for global leaders today, as mentioned by numerous debate curriculum creators. It's also used in the ancient political society to educate the public and for the public to recognize the government. It is also the most skills in demand when it comes to US employment market, including skills such as communication, problem solving, organization, as well as teamwork. And when you start practicing debate, this kind of brings you to the very last step in forming that global unity and consciousness, which is critical thinking skills and empathy. Now, critical thinking is often an extreme cliche term, and also a common term used in academic. But in short, critical thinking means thinking outside or beyond the box. And whenever we have a difficult question or a free response question, our teacher often refer it as a critical thinking question. Yet, I want to say that most of the students sitting here, you never actually did critical thinking before. And this reason goes all the way back when I was still in the Taiwanese public school. Whenever I have a test on the subject of history and social studies, I often faced with free response questions. But later I realized that these questions have a standardized answer on their answer sheet, meaning that if I answer wrong and doesn't match what's expected, then I was considered incorrect. And this kind of shows how many teachers in school doesn't want us to do actual critical thinking, but to memorize the curriculum and just simply putting the curriculum into words instead of circling A, B, C, D, and E like multiple choice, which ultimately makes no difference between them. Yet this is still a thing today when I'm in high school. And this kind of shows that we're still thinking inside the box, within our knowledge level. We're not thinking outside we have learned in school, matching it with our experiences and thinking in multiple perspectives, which is the thing that debate can offer us. One experience I had was when I was in a debate competition 2 years ago in Malaysia. I was faced with this motion that democracy is overrated. And the thing about this debate is that I only know the motion when I go inside that debate room. I only have 15 minutes to prepare on it, and I go straight on stage to proclaim my stances. Well, at that point, I kind of freaked out because I always think that democracy is the best way of governance. And standing on the affirmative team, I cannot believe how can I stand on the opposing side, something I always believed that's not true. But that 15-minute, that short time, kind of changed my opinion, which is that I realized democracy fits many countries today, but not every single country across the globe because of the historic development or perhaps its economic and humanitarian development. Incidents such as the Arab Spring also made me realize that perhaps democracy is not something that many countries are ready for today. And that is the first moment when I actually believe that I myself did critical thinking, because I put myself in a shoe and a side that I had never expected myself to be in, because I never believed it. But starting that, I began to think in a more flexible way. I began to realize that perhaps things are not always black and white. Another example is when I represented DPRK, known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or North Korea, in the Model UN Conference. I was faced with the resolution debating topic of nuclear weaponry. Well, obviously, it did not go well at all, because I have to stand on stage and say that we should totally develop nuclear weaponry, that this delegate loves nuclear weapon, and that my country has the right to nuke every single country that my holy leader believes that it's a threat, or he simply doesn't like it. And obviously, that was not pleasant at all, because whenever I say people don't agree with me, and whenever I vote something against, it always passes. And this shows that, well, no matter if I believe that opposing side at the end or not, I learned something, which is that I can stand in different perspectives. I enable myself to be flexible, and I truly can understand every side of a situation, which before I always believed that as long as I believe the thing is right, it is definitely served as justice. Now, the last part, besides critical thinking, is empathy. Empathy literally means understanding, but it's something that we all lack today. And the reason goes back to when we're making decisions. Think about it. When you make a decision, you make the most efficient one, meaning you prioritize yourself and your surrounding needs. You might say that you're not selfish at all, but you still have that prioritize. And the thing is that if you're trying to imagine, if we put that in the larger scale, in the government's position, this puts to the misconception of today's utilitarian society, mentioned by Professor Michael Sandels from Harvard University. In his book, Justice, he mentioned how today there's no wrong when it comes to forming a utilitarian society, but the point is the method, because they believe that if we maximize happiness, it's the right thing. Meaning that if 51% believe that they are happy, the government automatically believes that the entire country is satisfied. They're in a utilitarian society. But this is incorrect, because even if it's 49% or just 1%, citizens still dissent. And it caused numerous revolution and violence today, especially in the Middle East, such as Iraq or perhaps Syria or Sudan. And the thing is that without empathy, we cannot truly put ourselves in other shoes, understand one another, expand our perspective, and form a unified spirit, which is important when it comes to forming a global consciousness or unity. And this goes back to why debate creates empathy. Think about it. When you're doing debate, you have to persuade the judge to be on your side, meaning that you have to do rebuttals. In that process, you have to first listen, understand the opponents, meaning that you actually shift your point to their side, think in their shoes, find the loopholes, and you come back to yourself and proclaim your stances and persuade the judge. And actually, in that process, you learn to listen and understand, which is quite applicable in normal lives, which ultimately forms that correct sense of empathy. And moreover, it gives a transformation as when we're doing a debate, we often face an argumentative topic, which is related to our society today, and it requires massive amount of research. And then in that process, you actually want to dig more about it. You want to advocate more on it, and actually perhaps become interested in it. And this is actually can fit to my experience when I was debating in Malaysia, as well as another Malayan conference when I was representing Kiribati in the topic of global warming. Kiribati, as you might not know, is a small island in the Pacific Ocean. And because standing in that position and talking about global warming, I became quite interested about global issue, as well as comparative government and international relation, which made me had interest to pursue a senior thesis paper about resolving global issue through debate, as well as for me to stand here right now and give you that idea that it is possible for us to deal with these global issues within a shorter time if we all have the same mindset. Now, this 3 progress step that I just said is possible. It is a potential plan to start building like unity and creating a better future. However, there's one thing that you must know when it comes to following this 3-step progress plan, which is that individual actions do matter, no matter how cliche it sounds. Because you have to believe this cliche to actually believe that it will be possible to build that unity within every single one of us. Nevertheless, I have to say, the world is still currently in our hands at this moment, right here, right now. And the clock is still ticking, meaning that every second I'm speaking here is an opportunity lost for a better future. I want you to remember the thing I told you to imagine at the start, that dream. Remember that think and remember that taste of happiness when you succeed in that dream. And the potential in building an extraordinary future for us and our further generations. Now, never let that go away, because you will need that to build that global consciousness and unity in yourself, as well as the international community, to chase our dreams in a more wild, extraordinary way, in a more potential future than we never, ever imagined. Thank you for listening.